In a world saturated with noise where everyone seems to be shouting for attention, there exists a rare and powerful strategy: grinding in silence. This approach isn't about secrecy or isolation, but rather a commitment to purpose over popularity, progress over applause. It's about recognizing that the real work, the transformation, the breakthroughs, happen in the quiet moments, in the darkness before the dawn, long before anyone is clapping, long before the lights are shining, and long before the results are visible. When you grind in silence, you're building something that doesn't need to be validated in its infancy. You're planting seeds that haven't yet sprouted. Too often, people reveal their dreams too early, hoping for encouragement, but end up receiving doubt, skepticism, or indifference. And while external affirmation can be motivating, it's unreliable and inconsistent. If your motivation is dependent on others noticing your effort, then your commitment is already compromised. Real motivation is intrinsic. It comes from the fire within, not from the applause outside. There's something sacred about the process of working in the shadows. The early mornings when the world is still asleep, the late nights when the noise dies down. These are the hours where champions are forged. It's in the repetition of the grind, the discipline of showing up every day, that mastery is formed. It's not glamorous and there's no audience to cheer, but that's exactly why it works. Without the distraction of attention, the focus sharpens. You're not working to impress. You're working to become. Silence during the grind also means you're not broadcasting every move, every minor victory, or every intention. Not because you're hiding, but because you understand the value of strategic patience. There's a strength in restraint, in knowing when to speak and when to remain quiet. The grind is sacred, and sharing it prematurely can dilute its power. The truth is, when you're serious about something, you don't need to talk about it constantly. You're too busy doing the work. This mindset builds resilience. In silence, there's no feedback loop to comfort you or keep you going. You learn to encourage yourself, to motivate yourself, to discipline yourself. That kind of self-reliance becomes your armor. Because in silence, you're exposed to your own doubts, your own fears, and your own excuses. And overcoming them without external validation makes you stronger than any applause ever could. You develop an inner grit, a kind of toughness that can't be faked or borrowed. It's earned through every unseen rep, every unnoticed sacrifice. Moreover, the silent grind protects the integrity of the process. When you share your goals too soon, you invite commentary. Some people won't understand your vision, and their doubt can seep into your confidence. Others may offer praise before you've actually achieved anything, which creates a false sense of accomplishment. There's danger in getting too high off compliments or too low off criticism. By staying quiet, you insulate your focus. You keep your energy directed inward, where it can do the most good. One of the most profound aspects of grinding in silence is the surprise effect. When you finally emerge, when the work is done, the results speak for themselves. People who doubted you are left stunned. Those who underestimated you are forced to recalibrate. But none of that matters as much as what happens within you. You know the cost of your success. You know the pain, the effort, the failures, and the resilience it took. And because you've earned it in silence, no one can take it from you. Grinding in silence also fosters humility. You're not looking for recognition at every turn, so your ego stays in check. Humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less. It means putting the mission above the credit. It means choosing long-term impact over short-term validation. This humility becomes a strength because it keeps you grounded even when the success comes. And it will come. Not because you shouted the loudest, but because you worked the hardest. Working in silence also prepares you for the spotlight. By the time the world sees your results, you've already become the person capable of sustaining them. The spotlight can be dangerous if you arrive unprepared. It can inflate your ego, distract your focus, or magnify your weaknesses. But when you've been molded in the shadows, you're not dependent on external attention to validate your worth. You carry a quiet confidence, not loud, not boastful, but deeply rooted in real effort and proven consistency. There's also power in not letting people see your every move, not from a place of secrecy or paranoia, but from a place of sovereignty. When people don't know what you're building, they can't interfere with it. They can't sabotage it. They can't compare it, label it, or diminish it. You're free to build at your own pace, make mistakes in private, and pivot without pressure. The silence becomes your sanctuary, a space where growth is uninterrupted, where creativity thrives, and where progress is pure. In this silence, you also develop a stronger relationship with yourself. You get to know your limits, your habits, your thought patterns. You start to see the difference between motivation and discipline, between fleeting energy and lasting commitment. You don't need hype to get going. You move because you made a promise to yourself. That kind of integrity, where your word to yourself matters more than anyone else's opinion, is rare, and it's forged only in silence. So while the world chases attention, while others rush to be seen, choose the road less traveled. Choose the silent grind. Let your work be your voice. Let your success echo so loudly that you never had to say a word. Because the truth is, those who win in the end are not always the loudest, but the most consistent. And consistency, day in, day out in silence, is what separates the dreamers from the doers and the talkers from the achievers. Grind in silence, come back unrecognizable. It's a principle rooted in discipline, forged in solitude, and proven through action. When you're trying to rebuild, to rise again from failure, from pain, or from stagnation, the temptation is often to announce every move, to seek validation, to let the world know you're on your way. But true growth doesn't crave an audience, it demands privacy. It flourishes in isolation. The real work, the hard, unglamorous, painstaking work of reinvention, doesn't happen in front of cameras. It happens behind closed doors, in the quiet hours when no one is watching, when there's no applause and no one to cheer you on. That's where greatness is born. The grind is thankless at first. You wake up early, you show up tired, you repeat the process. The results don't come immediately. There's no instant feedback. You question yourself, you wonder if it's working, if you're wasting time. But that's the nature of transformation. It begins invisible. Like a seed under soil, growth happens in darkness long before anything breaks the surface. In those moments, the grind tests you. It strips away the superficial. It exposes your motives. Are you doing this because you want recognition? Or are you doing this because you're hungry for real change? To grind in silence is to make a pact with yourself. It's a commitment to internal standards, not external approval. It's choosing consistency over comfort, sacrifice over spotlight. It's waking up before the sun because you said you would, even when no one else will know. It's choosing the gym when the bed is calling. It's reading that book instead of scrolling your feed. It's working on your craft when others are out partying. That silence becomes your training ground. The discipline you build there becomes your edge. When you work in silence, the pressure fades. You're not performing for anyone. You're not competing for attention. You're free to fail, to experiment, to learn. And failure in silence is a gift. You get to fall without ridicule, to adjust without judgment. Each setback becomes feedback. Each mistake becomes a lesson. You move with stealth, not needing anyone to believe in your vision because you believe in it enough. And every small win stacks up quietly, steadily, until you're no longer who you were. People notice the transformation only when it becomes undeniable. That's when they ask, "Where have you been?" That's when they wonder how you suddenly became so focused, so sharp, so different. But there was nothing sudden about it. They didn't see the early mornings, the lonely nights, the self-doubt. You pushed through. They missed the sweat, the tears, the sacrifices. They only see the result, unrecognizable from the person you used to be. And that's the point. That's what it means to come back unrecognizable. You're not trying to return to your old form. You're trying to outgrow it. You're not trying to prove them wrong. You're trying to prove yourself right. This is not about revenge. This is about rebirth. When you disappear to do the work, you're not going into hiding. You're going into incubation. You're evolving. And when the time comes to emerge, you won't need to say anything. The results will speak louder than your voice ever could. Grind in silence, and let your success be the noise. That phrase isn't just a mantra, it's a strategy. It protects your energy. It shields your goals from criticism and doubt. It keeps you focused. Because every time you speak your dreams before they're ready, you open them up to resistance, both from others and from your own mind. But when you stay quiet, your momentum builds without interruption. You're not just working, you're compounding. And compound effort is powerful. One day becomes two becomes a week becomes a month. Over time, those silent days become a fortress of discipline. A life of excellence is built one uncelebrated day at a time. There's a quiet pride in knowing you did it the hard way, that no one handed it to you, that you didn't need applause, affirmation, or attention to keep going. All you needed was a reason, a purpose, a vision you refused to let die. And that kind of comeback, the one built from silence, discipline, and raw drive, can't be faked. It's earned. It's respected. It inspires not because it was loud, but because it was real. The truth is, silence sharpens focus. In silence, you hear your thoughts more clearly. You feel your convictions more deeply. You confront your weaknesses without distraction. You hold yourself accountable. There are no excuses when no one's watching. There's only effort, only action. Every rep, every page, every hour adds weight to your comeback. And when you come back, you're not bringing the old version of yourself. You're bringing someone forged through effort, tempered through adversity, and driven by purpose. It takes humility to disappear and work. It takes patience to stay the course when recognition is absent. But the ones who grind in silence understand that the spotlight is not the goal, it's a byproduct. They don't chase attention, they chase mastery. They don't ask for opportunities. They prepare so well that opportunities find them, and when they reappear, they do so not to be seen, but because their presence demands it. There's no mistaking it. They've changed. Not a little. Radically. Entirely. That transformation, silent, steady, undeniable, is the essence of the comeback. It's not just about recovery. It's about reinvention. It's about becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone whose resilience was built in the dark, someone who knows what it costs to change and paid it in full. The person who comes back isn't looking for applause. They don't need validation. They're here because they belong, because they did the work no one saw. For results, everyone will. They aren't ready for your return. They have no idea what's brewing behind the silence, what storms you've weathered in stillness, and what power you've cultivated when nobody was watching. The world often confuses absence with defeat, but what they don't understand is that some of the greatest comebacks are forged in quiet, away from the lights, applause, and recognition. You've been in the shadows, not because you were lost, but because you were recalibrating. There's a difference between disappearing and being deliberate. While others saw a pause, you were planning. While they scrolled past, you were sculpting your strength, rebuilding the foundation of something unstoppable. The process of coming back begins long before anyone sees the evidence. It starts in the mind, when the decision is made that failure isn't final, when the inner voice shifts from why me to watch me. It's that moment when you realize that every setback, every betrayal, every defeat was not the end but the preparation. You weren't broken. You were being reshaped. The world only sees the performance, but never the rehearsals. They don't see the nights you cried and still woke up early. They don't see the sacrifices, the hunger, the doubts that had to be conquered daily. They don't see the tears that never touched the floor because you wiped them before anyone noticed. And they definitely don't see the resilience that built muscle underneath the scars. Your return isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you are who you said you are. You've been collecting pieces, building slowly, brick by brick, and now the structure is almost complete. But here's the catch. When you come back, you won't be who you were. You'll be unrecognizable. The old version of you had limits. That person cared too much about opinions, feared failure, hesitated in the face of risk. That person is gone. The one emerging now is sharper, stronger, more focused. You're not walking back into the same world. You're stepping into it, with evolved vision, refined skills, and unshakable conviction. This time, silence was your superpower. While others were making noise for attention, you chose the grind. You chose growth over glamour, discipline over distractions. You weren't trying to be seen. You were working so hard that the results would make you impossible to ignore. This is the part they never teach. The most powerful moves are made in private. You didn't announce your progress. You made progress. You didn't post every step. You lived it. And now, the impact of your return will carry the weight of authenticity, not performance. People forget that transformation doesn't look glamorous while it's happening. It looks like long hours, lonely nights, missed calls, unanswered texts, and sacrificed weekends. It's unglamorous, uncomfortable, and unseen. That's why most don't come back. They crave comfort more than they crave growth. But you? You decided discomfort was the price of destiny. You understood that becoming unbreakable required being broken first, and through it all, you kept showing up. Not for validation, but for vision. You didn't chase applause. You chased alignment. Now you're coming back and the energy is different. There's no desperation in your steps, only direction. There's no bitterness in your tone, only clarity. You don't need to scream your return because the results will be louder than words. You're not seeking revenge. You're standing in reinvention. You're not here to play the old game. You're creating new rules, rewriting your story with intention and impact. And make no mistake, the silence before the comeback wasn't a pause. It was a prelude. The world thought you faded, but you were fermenting strength, maturing under pressure, becoming what couldn't be rushed. Because some comebacks require solitude. They require you to detach from the noise so you can hear your own voice again. You were never out of the fight. You were just training for a new level. And that version of you, that refined, resilient, relentless version, it's ready to step out. But not for approval, for purpose. They aren't ready because they remember the old you. They remember the version that apologized for being too ambitious, that second-guessed brilliance that shrank to fit rooms that couldn't contain your calling. But what's coming now is bold. What's coming now won't fit into the old frame. You outgrew the opinions, the limitations, and the expectations that once held you down. You've been reborn through grit, and you're no longer asking for space, you're taking it. With presence, with power, and with purpose. This comeback is not just an event. It's an eruption. It's the manifestation of years of resilience, of faith, of belief in something bigger than circumstance. The strength didn't come from comfort. It came from the dark places, from rock bottom, from disappointment, from rejection, from being overlooked and underestimated. That's where the real fire was born. And now that fire isn't just burning, it's unstoppable. Let them watch. Let them wonder how you're still standing. Let them try to understand how someone who was counted out managed to rise again, stronger than ever. Because your return isn't about making noise. It's about making history. You're not here to explain how. You're here to demonstrate. What happens when persistence meets purpose? When silence meets strength? When pain meets power? And the beauty is, you don't need a crowd to validate your comeback. Your own growth is the evidence. The way you walk now, the way you speak, the decisions you make, the boundaries you set. It all screams elevation, and elevation doesn't beg, it commands. It commands respect, it commands attention, it commands action. And you didn't come back to participate, you came back to lead. So don't be surprised if people don't recognize you. That's the point. You weren't meant to return as the same person. You weren't just recovering, you were reinventing. You weren't just healing, you were leveling up. You were writing a new chapter so powerful that the old one barely matters. And now that you're here, you move differently.